like I tell people all the time, at most jobs, so just take your average job. So you're not the CEO, whatever. You're employed at will, right? And so it's you have a choice every day if you want to show up at work or if you don't. And I think in a relationship, you make a decision every day if you want to be committed to that person or not. And the second you decide that they're not a priority or you're not putting them first, then it's probably not worth that commitment and that relationship and that partnership. And so, every day I get up, I'm like, Kevin may not be perfect and I may not be perfect, but we're perfect for each other.
Hello, Ayanna and Kevin. Thank you guys so much for joining.
Hi, Arvia.
Hi.
Thanks for having us.
You know what? You guys have been hard to reach. And so I am honored to have two of my busy friends on Dottie's house. Party people, let me introduce you to Ayanna and Kevin Clunis. They have been married for 23 years. We have been friends for a very long time. Actually, Ayanna and I used to commute back and forth from Cincinnati during our Procter & Gamble days to Chicago to see our boyfriends. And now we are both married. Ayanna and Kevin have been married, like I said, for 23 years. They've got two beautiful daughters. They currently live in Dallas. They are both high-powered corporate executives. Kevin is a senior vice president at Ross Stores Incorporated in New York City. And Ayanna is a partner at TPG in Dallas. So we're actually going to get into it because they commute right now for their marriage. It has not always been that way. But, when you've got two very successful people in a marriage, you have to make it work. So we're definitely going to get into that. I'm so glad y'all are here.
Glad to be here.
So let's just start off with, let's tell all of the party people how you all met.
We were both in Chicago. I think I was new to Chicago. I'm from New York City, and I moved to Chicago to take a job as a state prosecutor. And I think I was there for about a year. And a friend of mine invited me to a party. And it was happening at this club that, but I think it was a private party. And I'll tell you the story was my friend called me. I was sleeping. And he says, you got to come out. So I come out. And this guy was a professional baseball player with the Chicago White Sox. And we'd become friends. We weren't that close, but he wanted me to call me to be his wingman. And when I got there, he saw me, but he was talking to these two beautiful women. And he wouldn't, you're supposed to give the intro to the wingman, but he wouldn't. He was always a greedy guy.
He was blocking.
Yeah, he was blocking and being greedy. So I literally walked up to them to make a joke, so to kind of ingratiate myself into the conversation. And I said, your baby mama is outside looking for you. And, everybody laughed, but he didn't laugh. And he ran off.
Did he really have a baby mama?
I didn't know that. I was just making a joke, but he left. He got scared. He left and ran. And I was left with two women. And I saw Ayanna and I was like, wow, that one, I need to talk to her. And the other woman was her best friend who ended up being, cool, but probably wouldn't have been, I love her, but probably wouldn't have been my type. So that's how we originally met.
So Ayanna, let me ask you, when Kevin walked up, were you like, ooh, this man is fine? Or were you like, what are you doing?
I mean, he's a beautiful, beautiful person. I thought immediately, wow.
Stop lying. We're on the show. Stop lying.
He just had his Mac on. He was just very determined to meet one of us. So, I wasn't
determined to meet one of you.
You had the guy.
And how old were you? Ayanna, how old were you?
20.
And Kevin, how old were you?
I think I was 25,
you were 26.
26.
Rob the cradle.
Let me say this. It is so refreshing, and I want our young men to get back into this, to hear Ayanna, you say Kevin had his Mac on. I mean, that's what Y'all did back in the day. Y'all came strong and correct. And our young men are not as forthcoming. And I think that's a big miss in society. I don't know if it's because of COVID, if it's because of online. And I love that you just went up and you shot your shot.
I did. I did.
And here we are.
She was a knockout. She's still a knockout. She looks better now than she did before. So I guessed right. I bet right. Whew.
Now he
That's
said
right. I love it.
he was sure
Wait,
after he met my mother and my grandmother, then he was good. And so the rest is history.
so you all dated for how many years before you got married?
Oh, six? About 6.
6 years.
I was busy. I didn't have time to be getting married. You know, I had stuff I had to get done.
But you knew he was the one.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we had a lot of fun. I know for me, I had to, I had to work. I wanted to buy a place. I wanted to go to grad school. There were a lot of things that I wanted to do, and I wanted to not get distracted. And for some reason, he was really patient with all of that. So, which was also really attractive because I certainly found it important to have someone that was a supporter and an enabler of all the dreams that I had. And so that was really critical. And so that made it even more interesting to me because no matter how crazy I was, and I'll tell you a little story, I was so determined to buy something, and he was instrumental in helping me find a place in Chicago. It was this new construction, which was a new thing at that point, like the new construction, remodeling of old kind of warehouses or whatever. And I, put an offer on it, and it wasn't going to be ready for a while. And I just moved back from Cincinnati, where we were, Arvia, and I'd moved into my parents' house just for temporarily before I moved into my place. They decided to retire and move from Chicago, and I had what was going to be a 3 to 4 month window of not having a place to live, and I didn't want an apartment, a short-term apartment. And he offered for me to move in. Long story short, I ended up moving in, and it's
Really? I don't remember this.
Yeah, I ended up moving in with him, and it was supposed to be 3 months. It ended up being a year because it took them so long to build the place. It just kept elongate. There were always some issue. So I ended up moving in with him for a year. I moved into the place. I closed on it, moved into it. Then I decided I wanted to go to business school and go full time. So I ended up selling it in a day, and I thought it was going to take longer to sell. So I had to move back in with him.
Oh my goodness.
Before I went to business school. And, he was just a trooper. He moved me in, he moved me out, he moved me to business school. I mean, so I was like, well, I guess if you're going to do all that, you might as well stay around.
She found bookmen.
Okay.
she found an employee. That's what she
He was
found.
a great employee. He delivered. He was on
That's
time.
what happened.
There were no complaints.
But that wasn't a succinct story. That was a long story, and there's all the stuff that happened before we got there. So, but
Yeah. And I do want to talk about that, but I really want to get into this whole situation, which I think is so interesting. You all were dating. Procter and Gamble moves you. Did P&G move you to Chicago, or you ended up getting another job in Chicago?
No, I got another job.
So you got another job in Chicago. So you could be close to your boyfriend.
Yeah. Yes.
But
no, she got another job so she can make more money. That's it. I just happened to be she get an employee on the side in addition to that.
well, which one was it,
Employee
Ayanna?
with benefits. That was one
Yes.
of the benefits of the new job. Side dude. They had it on the benefit list when you picked in November. If you want a side dude for sex, that you pick that. It didn't cost any extra.
I'm hollering. So you moved so you could have a side piece.
I moved to Chicago, a new job.
No, but I really want to know this, Ayanna. Did you move to Chicago because you wanted to be closer to Kevin, or just a new opportunity opened up, which happened to be in Chicago? I just need to understand.
I think it was a lot of things. I didn't like Cincinnati, number one. I absolutely did not like Cincinnati. So that was a big driver. I needed to be back in a major city, and it was great that Kevin was in Chicago as well. And then
it just all worked out.
It all worked out, yeah. I wouldn't say. I mean, I was early, and I'm a pretty determined person. Like I knew career wise, there were things that I wanted to accomplish that were going to be agnostic to any. No one was getting in my way. But it was awesome that he was in Chicago. It was a great opportunity. You know, I mean, we'd only been dating, a year at that point. I was in Cincinnati, so. Um,
Yeah, but let's back up a little bit, right? Because after I met Ayanna, I met her in this club at the party after with Buzz. We connected, but it wasn't. She was still in school. She was still at Cornell. I was already out a practicing attorney. And what we talk about, this theme of her continuing to be independent and being a driver, that was what attracted me more than anything. She wasn't all into me. I was a single guy, I was an attorney. I thought I was doing something in Chicago. But I met this woman that wasn't even really, she was doing her thing. She hit that midpoint of showing interest, but not being too interested. You know what I mean? She was, and it helped me to first of all, I was kind of, my ego was more like, wait a second, she's not all over me. But she showed me enough interest that I wasn't kind of discouraged, right? She had her own things going. I had my own things going. And the funny story is she'd come back and forth to visit her parents in Chicago, but she would call me as she left. When she was on the way to the airport to leave, I was like, well, you've been here a week. You just now calling me. I didn't even know you were in town. And that was,
Oh,
first of
wow.
all, it kind of affected my ego because I thought I was the man. But here's this one woman that wasn't really paying attention, but gave me enough rope to kind of like, I like you, but I'm not, I'm not infatuated. Not that I was the catch of the litter, but I was at least thought that,
You
at
were in the
least
game.
I thought I was in the game, but she just kept me on the bench and gave me some time at the end, like garbage time with the basketball game. When you're winning and you got 5 minutes left, that's when she would call me. But at the same time, I liked the woman that was she was doing her thing, and the independence was one of the attractions. But it wasn't like she was playing a game with me. She just had stuff to do. And I was like, oh, I like that.
and
Oh,
and
I like that. But let
and
me ask you something, Kevin and
Yeah.
Ayanna. Were
yeah.
you coming to Chicago, not calling him or not seeing him when you were in undergrad or when you had moved to Cincinnati?
I was at the end of undergrad because
Okay.
I met him right before I finished undergrad. So we didn't start dating really till Cincinnati. Like I moved. So I'll tell you. So when I graduated from Cornell, I stayed and kind of traveled around the East Coast. That was my whole thing. I had my little car, traveled around the East Coast. And Kevin is from New York, and I knew that. And we hadn't seen each other since that. I mean, I met him, but I really hadn't seen him at all, actually, because I was in New York. And this is again no cell phone, so he might call. I usually didn't take his calls. I was busy, and so what would happen is as I was traveling around, I was like, oh, Kevin said he would visit his mom all the time, and usually over the summers. And so I reached out and said, hey, I'm going to be driving back from New York. Would you drive back with me? Because normally when I would drive from Chicago to New York, I had one of my very good friends who would drive with me, but she wasn't, she had moved and doing something else. And so I was like, oh, it'd be great to drive back with someone. Now he hadn't seen me in a long, and there's no Instagram, there's no pictures,
Right.
there's nothing, right? Other than a phone number that, you might pick up or not. And so that was the next time we
Yeah,
connected.
because she asked me to drive back across the country from New York to Chicago, and I was like, I hadn't seen this girl. I don't know her like that, but so I go. I was living in Chicago as new, but I'm a New Yorker. I'm a subway New Yorker. Living in Chicago was kind of living on the moon for me at one time. So I'd go home all the time on the weekends. So she asked me to drive back with her, but I tried to hedge my bets. Not only did I get like a two-way ticket just in case, uh, but I had her meet me somewhere in New York, and it was kind of an atrium setup. And I said, well, you meet me on the fifth floor of this building. I forgot where
No,
it
you
was.
told me to meet on the ground.
On
You
the
went on
ground. I went upstairs to the second floor so
You
I
know
could
what,
see
Kevin?
her.
Stop it.
No, seriously. So I could see her to make sure she was still as fine as I remember before I decided to drive across country with this woman I hadn't seen. So that was, otherwise I was just going to get back on my flight and go back to Chicago. I didn't know this girl.
Kevin,
No,
oh
it was
my
a true
gosh.
story.
Wait, you're killing me right now. Are you serious?
That's what he says. That's what he says. I don't think he would have left me.
I got a two-way ticket. Ask my
Kevin,
mother.
I want to get into this though. I want to get into this. Ayanna, your game was so strong, it was ridiculous. I mean,
But it
for
wasn't
you
intense.
to,
It really wasn't. But he has a really important point, which is, I think what is important for people to think about, or women, or whatever. It's not that I was intending and purposely, focused on gay. I was actually just focused on myself and focused on the things that were important for me to get done and the things that I wanted to achieve, and making sure that I was not getting distracted, right? And so it just happened to play out, I think, in the fact for him, oh, she's independent, and it's not all about me, not all
I'm
about him.
talking about you calling him to ride with you back
Oh
from
yeah,
New York to Chicago.
yeah. But even that, it was sort of like, hey, it really was going to help me out because I didn't want to drive by myself. So there was a rationale, but it wasn't. I didn't think of it as game. Let's put it that way.
And the truth
You
is,
were
it
just
was.
very comfortable. You looked at him as a friend, that someone that you were attracted to, and you were like, "Oh, Kevin's in New York. Let me call." So it wasn't that deep.
I
You
was
were
trying
really
to check
just
him out. I was trying to check him out. Let's be clear. I was definitely trying to check him out. And I was like, a long drive that would give a lot of time to talk to him. But yeah, it was just kind of like, this would make sense.
And you know what? For me, it was also, I did kind of plan a contingency plan with my ticket going back, but I also, even the first concept of driving back with her, she was fun. The times we did talk and interacted, it was fun. If nothing else, she would have been a cool girl to know. And whenever you find a cool girl, they always have friends, right? So I'm just saying, if she doesn't like me, she's going to introduce me to one of her friends. So I was always
That's a
thinking,
lesson. That's a
it was
lesson.
a game.
say that again. Say that again. Now say
Lesson.
it for the people in the back. That's a great lesson. When you
Yeah.
have a cool girl, they always have what?
They
Friends.
always
Friends.
have friends.
That's right.
So if they could say, "Well, I don't like him," they could pass you on to the next up. I'm just joking.
But Kevin, it's honestly true. I think especially with online dating, these young people go out and it's super awkward because they go out, they meet somebody online. Normally it's a dinner date, which I don't recommend. And it's almost like an interview. It's not organic at all. And they don't think about, if this person is cool, I just want to be friends with them because they're also going to have cool friends. And it's a mindset. And I really want people to start thinking about that instead of, this is not the person for me. I definitely don't want to marry them. There's nothing about them I like. I'm out. It's almost like it's like they have this checklist in their head and they're either for them or they're not for them. And they don't even think about the larger picture of, this could be a cool friend that also has cool friends. And I love that. I love that you were open. You were like, you know what? If it doesn't even work out, I just like her as a person and we're going to have a good time.
One of the things that it came to mind as you were talking about sort of cool person or what have you, that I remember specifically being important to me and about him, was that, and this terminology is trite now and it's overused, but if I could take it back 30 years, he has a growth mindset. So what I mean by that is his ability, and what was so interesting to me is that, like, he just was always trying to learn something new, do something new, open to something. And it was most evident in his music. And so that was back when you had all the CDs, the CDs left, and his music taste, it was like everything went from rap to hard rock to alternative to gospel. I mean, like every possible genre that it could exist, he had it. And that to me was just awesome because it told me that he was very open to different things, different people, different places. He's literally like just eager to learn and try things. And that was exciting. And so that potential, and sort of being able to just stretch your mind and not just like, this is the way it's got to be. And, I grew up this way, I thought was great. And some of that I saw because he was this New Yorker. He was like this displaced New Yorker. He was 100% New Yorker. He had the New York accent. He had his New York Knicks jersey on and his Timberlands. I mean, he was a totally displaced New Yorker in Chicago, but he was open to just, he's like, well, what does this have to offer? What can I learn? Who are these people? How is this is different? What is this house music? What is that? And that I thought was very exciting and attractive. And that's something that people, I think, sometimes lose sight of because they're just looking at, if they're at a dinner, they don't get to see the person in activity and how they interact with other people and, what's important to them.
Yeah, I think one of the things with, going back to why you even drove back with her, again, she was fun. And I personally, I grew up with women, right? So I always said for men, and it helped me all the way through college, that women make better friends than men for men, right? So I was thinking, okay, if nothing else, I have another fine friend who she's probably gonna have fine friends. So that was mine. So I'm expanding my network. That if
Exactly.
nothing else, and I just got to, it just became that I hit the jackpot, right? It was, here is this woman, super attracted to her. She's funny, and she's funny to this day. Love being around her. Those factors were always a big thing. And remember, she wasn't sweating me. That's what we used to say. She wasn't sweating me. She was doing her own thing. And so, why not hang out with this person?
I did not realize, you guys, that Ayanna, I don't remember this. And I don't know if we were still in Chicago, if we had moved to San Antonio at this point. But I did not realize you moved in with Kevin, built, bought a new development like what we had, moved into it after a year of living with Kevin, separate from Kevin, after living with Kevin for a whole year. And Kevin, you didn't move in there with her. And then
No, because he had his own place. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my friends thought I was completely crazy, because all my friends at that time were single, had their own place, and I talked about her all the time. And then she was gonna be without, her parents were moving away, and she was gonna be without. So I was like, why not? Because again, she was also my friend. I enjoyed
Right.
being around her. So I don't, it wasn't that bad to have her move in. She did break my closet though.
Well, I mean, you had weak
Yeah,
structures.
she broke my
clearly.
closet down with all her clothes and all my clothes in one little section. It was a mess, but it was still cool.
Well, we got the closet game tight now. It's good.
Yeah, right.
I
Most
bet you
time.
do. It's just interesting, and I'm impressed. This is new for me. I'm impressed that you guys, that Ayanna, you weren't of this mindset of I don't need to buy anything until I get married to Kevin or whatever. Like you had your mindset, like I'm going to buy my own place and I'm going to do all the goals and do all the things I want to do, including have a life with this man at some point. But I want to buy a home and I'm going to. And I'm going to go to business school and I'm going to. And it all worked out. And Kevin gave you space to do it.
Well, and I just to be clear, I grew up, my mother, very, very strong figure in my life, and she remarried, to my stepfather, and who I consider my father. He's deceased now, but she was married for 30 years to him, 35 years. Prior to that, to my biological father, there were some challenges as far as her being able to achieve the things she wanted to achieve. Like she was in law school, but she didn't get to finish. There was a bunch of stuff that, just because of sort of their relationship, she was unable to do. So every moment she had, she would say, you've got to make sure you do all the things you want to do. Don't forgive, or give up your goals because of someone else. And so I always had that in the back of my head. And so even with Kevin, I would say, hey, I'm determined to buy, I have to be able to buy a place by myself. I have to be able to do, business school or whatever. I think I was thinking law school, whatever. I wanted to do grad school. And I wanted to make sure that I was able to survive on my own and to be able to provide for my own. And that'll get interesting when we talk about how do you pull those things together. But it was really important for me to prove to myself that I could do that. And he was super supportive throughout. And so for me, buying it and then selling it, and then going and then moving off to business school. It was a little bit crazy, but it was really important for me to accomplish, because I think had I not, that would be something that would sit on my shoulders of like, I should have done it, I should have, could have, would have, and I would have hated to have any regrets and say that it was because of Kevin.
Yeah, and that was one of the most attractive things for me, is that she had these goals and she was going to do it. And all the guys, I mean, even my friends, none of my friends at that time said anything, oh, she's doing this. They were like, wow, you got one. It's like you went fishing and I caught the big fish, and they were like, whoa, hold on. Even the most wild friends I had, and I had a whole bunch of them, you knew some of them, Arvia, they were all like, wow, you have someone that's doing this. And I was gonna support everything I could, every step she made, because I thought that if nothing, if that the fact that she was going for all these aspirations, all the things she wanted to do, that just made it even great, because I had aspirations too. And I knew that at some point those things would come back together. And the partnership started way before we got married. Let me just put it that way. Our partnership started not too long after we met, because I don't believe in getting married to get married, or get married hoping that it will create a partnership. I truly believe that you establish a partnership with someone, and then you make it official later on. But that's just our story. But that's in our belief and our ethos. It's about the partnership.
That's beautiful. And your partnership is very clear, because you guys have moved quite a bit. You've
Yes,
had
we
long
have.
distance during your marriage. You've had long distance relationships, with careers. It's pretty incredible. Um, Tell us how you guys have been able to manage. I mean, even currently, Ayanna's office is in Dallas. Yours is in New York City. I know you guys both travel, but how do you guys manage that as a married couple?
It's actually, believe it or not, it's actually really easy, because we just prioritize each other. So it's
Say
sort
it
of
again for the people in the back.
we prioritize each other. You know what? It's like I tell people all the time. At most jobs, so just take your average job. So you're not the CEO, whatever. You're employed at will, right? And so it's you have a choice every day if you want to show up at work or if you don't. And I think in a relationship, you make a decision every day if you want to be committed to that person or not. And the second you decide that they're not a priority, or you're not putting them first, then it's probably not worth that commitment and that relationship and that partnership. And so, every day I get up, I'm like, this is I always say, Kevin may not be perfect and I may not be perfect, but we're perfect for each other, right? It's just
I'm perfect. What do you think?
anyway. And and it's like every day you choose. It's like you choose, and choice comes with making decisions around, are we going to be in the same city at the same time? Let's meet. We have calendars and we move things around constantly. And then our children, are kind of the anchor for us of like, where do we need to be so we can make sure that we're supporting them as much as possible. They're 18 and 15, and they're physically not in the house right now, which allows us to move around a bit, which is great.
Well,
but
they're at boarding school and college.
School.
It's not like they're child services.
No.
What kind of is this stuff? They're physically not in the house.
Well,
no,
I think
they're in
anybody
college
would.
and boarding
Yeah, they're in
school.
school. I mean, of course.
We gotta,
Of course
Anyway.
they're in school. But anyway, and despite having you as their father. Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
no.
And but in all reality, it's a lot of just prioritizing and sitting down, and that means that everything's not going to be perfect every day, as far as, oh, I wish we could have done this, but oh, you're not here, we're going to go, we have to change the time, and that's fine. It's easy enough to do, and I think we're both flexible enough. And then I think the other piece is, your careers and sort of those demands ebb and flow throughout your relationship. So I think there are times, Kevin has had to be based out of Canada, other places where he's been, or you were in Switzerland for a few months. The kids were really little. we've had to just adjust and ebb and flow, and just, you change your community of people around to help as you need to do it. But we're always willing to make the sacrifice. So it might be that I'm pulling a little bit more weight on the family side at one point, or he's pulling more weight on the family side, and I'm doing more on the professional side. And so it's just constant, balancing. We're just constantly balancing and making sure that we're supportive of each other. And I think that, that's rooted in communication. You just have to constantly communicate. You can't assume, you can't just think the other person's going to get it or understand what's happening in your professional life or whatever. Maybe you just have to always communicate. And so if you communicate and you're prioritizing and you're choosing that person and them to be the priority for you, it works.
Yeah, there's no real expectations. I mean, we look at what one person likes to do, and like Ayanna loves to make a bed. She loves every morning she gets up and makes her bed, right? But I had to learn that sometimes I'll make the bed just to kind of say, hey, listen, I'm not that selfish. But I like when she makes the bed. She makes the bed better, and she does the laundry. But I got to do the laundry sometimes too, and when there's laundry in it, this is somebody that does laundry every day.
I don't like dirty clothes.
Don't let the dirty clothes hit you.
But it's just like little
things like, I know what she doesn't care about, but I still want to get her involved, and it's a partnership. It's just, to me, it's just the key word is partnership, because any business, one partner does one thing, another partner does another thing. You keep in contact. You're communicating. You make that other person a priority, and it has actually worked well for us, because even that time when I was in Canada and having to come, and she was holding down the fort, and then with the kids, we have different responsibilities with our children, and our children is why we get up every morning.
Absolutely.
But she's still the most important person. I always say and she hates when I say this, but she's the most important thing in my life. She says, I'm not a thing. But she is, because if she wasn't around, there wouldn't be any kids. So I always say, if it wasn't for Ayanna, I'd be somewhere working at a gas station. I'd also own 4 gas stations, but
Fellas, do you hear that? Do you hear that, though? Kevin is out here saying that Ayanna is the most important person in his world, in his life. And, we really want you guys to be thoughtful about finding your partner and building a life with them.
But can I throw in, yes, they should be, but they also have to be willing to see people grow. So you're not going to get, so you're seeing Kevin and I 30 years into a marriage, or 23 years into a marriage, and 30, whatever. We've been in a relationship a long time, and we've had to grow together, and it's not been perfect. It's not like every day's been rosy and rainbows and
no.
Anyway,
me.
And so, you have to be willing to grow together and learn each other's flaws and say, like, does it, what's a big deal, what's not a big deal, and have that communication. And then over time, it just, it just evolves so beautifully. But you have to put in the work. And so for people, when they first meet and they expect that person to be exactly perfect, and Arvia, we've talked about this, you can't go in, I say with a young woman, don't go in thinking you're going to meet Kevin Clunis, you're in his 50s today, at what he was at 26 when I met him and what he is today. He's evolved and grown as an individual, myself included, right? Since I was 20 to now. And so what you're looking for is more, do they have the potential? Do they seem like someone who's got the ability to grow and wants to grow and is interested in being supportive? And that partnership piece, but you don't expect them to be perfect day one. Meaning, don't have these outrageous expectations, like these lists. I hear of these people having these lists. They need to be 800 things, and you're like, nobody is those 800 things. You'll never find anyone if you
no. The other thing that I think that you said is really important is, this is Kevin at 56 years old. A lot of our young women are wanting, they're like, but that's not how my dad is. That's not how my dad is.
Your dad took some
Your
work to get
father
there.
wasn't like that at 50. Your dad at 26 was a Rolling Stone.
Right.
He was not the same person he is today. So we need to manage expectations, party people.
The one thing I will say again to her point that you're not you're not the same person today that you potentially will be. Once we got married at my wedding, I remember a bunch of my friends saying, Kevin, this woman changed your life because you used to be in Timberlands, jeans, and hoodies, but now you wear fabrics
Colors,
and
fabrics.
colors and fabrics. But it was just a microcosm of the fact that you change. People change over time, and you just have to be a partner to support that change.
Preach. Well, I want to ask you about your finances, but before you do, because Ayanna, you already gave your advice to the women. I think it's great. Kevin, what advice would you give to our young Black men?
Just be yourself. Find somebody that's going to complete you. Somebody that's got that's going to have their own journey. That would be my advice, because in the end, two together, if you find a strong person and you're a strong person, you're just going to be stronger. So just, so many times we're told we have to find somebody that's going to complete us, the man. No, we need somebody who's going to complete the couple. And I think if you just look for somebody who's could stand on their own, but would love to grow with you.
That's great. Okay, so there's been a lot of talk on the internet about finances. And is it 50-50? Do you keep it separate? Do you put it in one pot? Before we close out, the party people want to know, and I want to know, is it one pot or is it two?
One pot all the way.
And
I don't even know how. And look, I don't know what the party people and everybody else is doing these days. I don't know how you manage it any other way. It's always one. And for us, it's been, our compensation and what we brought to the table has varied over this 20-something year period. And I couldn't even tell you who's what, because we always look at what is our total, what is our net value together. We literally, we never look at it separate. Everything is completely intertwined. And I just think it sets you up for a better success. Now, again, we haven't operated the other way, so I'm sure there's many people that do. We find having everything together, being fully transparent, and having, we have an advisor, et cetera. So we regularly visit our finances. We plan together always, monthly probably. We're always planning together, and that works for us. And, again, everyone has their own thing, but that works really well for us.
It's not just a pot; it's a gumbo, a sausage. We don't even know how to we don't want to. There's no. Everything is together, so we grow together.
Jason and I have been the same way since day one. And I just can't imagine having, I don't understand the whole separate thing, because I feel like it's a mindset. If you go into a marriage with everything separate, it's almost like it's an escape hatch. It just doesn't make sense to me. How are you going to grow together and build your future together if your money is separate? I'm confused.
The one piece I will say that makes it more complex is it does depend at what stage in your life you actually do commit to your marriage. So it may be different for someone who's coming in at 40 years old, has a lifetime, maybe has a child. I do think different circumstances might make how you put your finances together more challenging. But I still think even from that point where you draw the line, like we're getting married, that there's a place where you say, this is what we have together. Like from this point on, we are together.
Absolutely.
Right? I think it's important.
I'm glad you said that, because we've been married forever. And Harvey and Jason, when did y'all get married? Back in the 40s?
Before us, so 98?
Oh, whatever. We're 28 years. We're 27 years, and y'all are 23 years.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah,
I
97.
Remember. Wow, yeah. Y'all been married a long time.
Yeah, exactly. See, we've been all married a long time. So there probably are some differences, depending on life stage of
But our advice to the young people, if you do get married, and you're young,
start together.
And you have not built that much together. I mean, you have not built that much separately. You really should.
Yeah. I guess the counter argument, it would be too hard to to break apart. Yeah, it's supposed to be hard.
Life is hard.
Life is hard. So go in it, go full, jump the whole way in. And, that's how we did it. And it worked, I think.
Well, thank you guys for sharing. I agree. You guys are a beautiful couple. I'm so grateful to have you guys in my life. Jason and I are both so grateful. And thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Arvia.
Take care, Arvia. We appreciate it. Love you,
You
girl.
guys are awesome. Thanks for listening to Dottie's House. We'd love to know your thoughts about today's episode. Join the conversation on Instagram. Follow us at The Dottie Club. And if you're looking for your happily ever after, apply today at thedottieclub.com. Be sure to follow our podcast wherever you listen so you can join us for the next episode.